Atlanta by Joe Duffy. He's a sports handicapper with offshoreinsiders.com. Joe, good to see you.
But really what Seattle's biggest worry is on the defensive side, where they're going to be enforcing the 5-yard chuck rule this year. Most experts I trust, and I'm talking about guys that are former players that are now talking heads on TV or satellite radio, they believe that 5-yard chuck rule is going to affect Seattle's defense the most. So I think that's really the biggest question for Seattle this year. They're not going to be able to get away with that clutching and grabbing that they were last year. So can they make that adjustment on defense?
Right now we're joined with college football analyst Joe Duffy from offshoreinsiders.com to get his thoughts on the lines for the game. Now, Joe,
well, Megan, truthfully, I think the biggest play here is going to be on the under. Both of these teams, as you kind of indicated, they're run-oriented. Air Force, of course, they love to run the ball.
Want to check in, find out what's on the line with Joe Duffy from mybookie.ag.
BYU, as you know, they certainly struggled this year. They're 0-4 against the spread, 1-3 straight up. And one of the great things I love about my computer software is I get the test theories. And, you know, like 10, 15 years ago when computer software wasn't quite as good, I probably would have been all over BYU because I would say this is the type of situation where they would benefit from a bye. They play the 6th toughest schedule in the country.
Let's get to some baseball. We've got Joe Duffy joining us to talk a little baseball. Hello.
Yeah, talk about red hot, Chelsea. The Washington Joe Ross hasn't had a very good year. 5.91 ERA, a horrid 378 on-base percentage against. However, conversely, lately, a stunning .50 ERA, 261 on-base percentage.
Returning guest Joe Duffy from offshoreinsiders.com joins us. Joe, off a 2-0 week last week. Nice work.
You know, Michigan's still been adequate with him. You know, they did come back against Penn State and make it look a little bit closer, but some conflicting stuff here. Short road underdogs. And I picked it up off of, Brent Musburger's network. They have one of the guys from the Action Network, probably my favorite guest there. He has a lot of pretty good systems, and he talked about short road underdogs. And I'm like, wait a minute, let me look at it. And I noticed that the short road underdogs often conflict with my home momentum system. So the software I have, which is a little bit better than they use, I do like the BetLab software, but I got my own, not my own software, but another software out there, the sports databases. And it's a lot easier to see what happens when good systems go head-to-head and to cancel them out. So my enhanced version of the short road underdog does apply here.
Oh, is that sporting an Ohio State shirt there, Joe?
Yeah, there you go. Yes, we've explained it before. I got quite a few of these. My oldest son goes to the Ohio State, and since they're kind of newer ones, they're the ones with the fewest number of stains on it. But yes, go OH, as we like to say. Yeah, and I think if anything, maybe the consensus was 11.5. For the most part, and it starts out, with an good implied question. Anyway, when it comes to line moves, if it is not a result of an obvious injury or weather conditions, it is truly just a line move, I generally think it's a good idea to fade it. You're using the odds makers' knowledge against them. Look, Sam Howell, he's the new North Carolina quarterback. He's a 4-star recruit. He was heavily recruited by quite a few schools. Clemson even wanted him, and South Carolina wanted him. Now, Jace Ruder's the backup. He's probably...
And I couldn't be more excited about my next guest. He is a longtime handicapper. When I say longtime handicapper, I hope I'm not insulting him by saying that his career goes back to the score phone here. It is Mr. Joe Duffy. Joe, how are you today?
Seattle and the Denver Broncos is one of my selections. Now, there's a lot of interesting stuff here as far as people who might want to bet the side are concerned. The Seahawks are 3-16 straight up in the month of September. The Broncos, not surprisingly, are very good early on in the year, and especially at home.
All right, we are back here on the Peristyle Podcast. We bring back, again, for the second week in a row, Joe Duffy. He's the CEO of offshoreinsiders.com. On behalf of mybookie.ag, we wanted to talk about some of the odds surrounding this USC football team and Sam Darnold. A lot of talk. We get a lot of questions about it. So we thought we'd bring in an expert, and Joe Duffy certainly is that. Joe, thanks for coming on. But what do you think about USC and Texas?
Yeah, mybookie.ag wasn't very happy in week one. I took some money from them because I did have Maryland in that game. But
ooh, nice.
Texas is a team. Look, I'm not a big fan of Tom Herman to begin with. I think he's an extremely overrated coach. When he was at Houston last year, they were supposed to be the team that could be the spoiler, the fly in the ointment. And when the season was on the line, they struggled down the stretch. And I really never understood the world's infatuation with him. He was clearly outcoached in game one. Of course, they did come back, as you said, last week against an inferior opponent.
We got Joe Duffy of Offshore Insiders. We're going to be talking about Green Bay -3.5. Yeah, we need to talk about that, and also the little over-under of 46.5. And we got some angles on it because Joe's been having a pretty good track record. Actually, I think I should go back and look through the picks because I know that I've been following his betting advice at mybookie.ag, and it's been paying dividends.
You know, I always say in handicapping, the single most overrated statistic is one-loss record. Mm-hmm. And the Detroit Lions, look, their 3 wins were each by 7 or more. Their 2 losses were by a combined 7 points, including, arguably the biggest heartbreaking loss of the year when they lost on the 1-foot line to Atlanta, and then there had to be a runoff because of the review. They didn't have any timeouts left. So you could certainly argue that the Lions are better than their record. I definitely think it's an outlier. The Saints defense all of a sudden lately has been looking good. I'm not really buying into that at all.
The NFL right now with Joe Duffy from OffshoreInsiders.com.
I do agree with you there, Peter. Remember what I always say, the most overrated statistic when it comes to spread handicapping is straight up record. San Diego's been pretty competitive in a lot of their losses, 7 losses by 7 or less. Another loss was by 8 points. Denver, 8 wins by a touchdown or less. And they have 3 overtime wins. They are 3-0 in overtime. So, they have a deceptive record. I'm not so sure they're as great as the record.